Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinde, 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 Jaya Vrinde.
Bugs? I hope not. Hare Krishna. Chayo Radha Madhuva Kunyabi Hakute Jayo Radha Madhuva Kunyabi Hare Gopi Janamalaba Iribadatakuti Gopi Janamalaba Kiribadatakuti Yasodananda Rajajana Ranjana Sodananda Tana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Manachagute Yamuna Tira Manachagute Jayaradhu Madhava Kunjabihahure Jayaradhu Madhava Kunjabihahure Gopi Janabanaba Girivardhare Gopi Janabanaba Girivardhare Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachagute Yamuna Tera Vanachagute Jayaradhu Madhuva Kunjabihagute Jayaradhu Madhuva Kunjabihagute Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parvacharya Avitara Sitashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shaimakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagadasami Ki Jai Manamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristaya Budle, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Chinamani Namaste, Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pacharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarani. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 63rd chapter, text 40. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Yan Maya Mohita Tiya Putra Dara Grahadishu Unmajanti Nibajanti Prasakta Originarnave Yanbaya Mohita Diha Putradara Grahadishu Unmajanti Nimajanti Prasakta Richinarnave Yanmaya Mohita Diha Putradara Grahadishu Unmajanti Nimajanti Prasakta Richinarnave Yanmaya Mohita Diha Putradara Grahadishu Unmajanti Nimajanti Sakta Richinarnave All right. Yat of whom Maya, by the illusory energy, Mohita, bewildered, Diya, and their intelligence, Putra, with regard to children, Dara, wife, Graha, home, Adishu, and so on. Unmajante, they rise to the surface. Nimajante, they become submerged. Pasakta, fully entangled. Avrijana, of misery. Arnave, in the ocean. Translation, their intelligence bewildered by your Maya, fully attached to children, wife, home, and so on. Persons immersed in the ocean of material misery sometimes rise to the surface and sometimes sink down. So you can repeat, their intelligence bewildered by your Maya, fully attached to children, wife, home, and so on. Persons immersed in the ocean of material misery sometimes rise to the surface and sometimes sink down. So, purport by the followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Swami explains that rising in the ocean of misery indicates elevation to the higher species, such as demigods and the beings submerged, refers to degradation to lower species, even to immobile forms of life, such as trees. As stated in the Vayu Purana, Vipariyascha bhavati brahmatva sta varat vayo. The living being rotates between the position of Brahma and that of an unmoving creature. Srila Jiva Goswami points out that Shiva, having glorified the Lord, now pursues his original intention of securing the Lord's grace for Banasura. Thus, in this and the following 4 verses, Lord Shiva instructs Bana on his actual position in relation to the Lord. Shiva's appeal to the Lord for compassion toward Bana appears in text 45. So we'll read the commentaries, short commentaries by the Acharyas. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, says, "Be merciful, you appear in this world to deliver the jivas, but the jivas remain fallen in the ocean of samsara." And Jiva Goswami states, after indicating the Lord's profound glories, Shiva gives information to teach Bana, who is full of pride, by making him ashamed in order to give him mercy in 5 verses. The glories of the Lord are not astonishing, but generally everyone is bewildered. This verse describes the bewilderment. Their intelligence is bewildered by your Maya. And finally, Sanatana Goswami. You reveal mercy to the devotees only and not the non-devotees. The non-devotees suffer their intelligence suffer, period. Actually, there's some punctuation problem here. Their intelligence is bewildered by your Maya. So again, the verse. Yan Maya mohita diya putta dara graha vichu bhajanti nimanchanti asakta vijanar nave. So Gana Timidandasha Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here we see that Lord Shiva is offering his prayers, and actually he's offering his prayers to Lord Vishnu. At the same time, he's giving information to his friend, Banasura. And it's interesting, he doesn't tell this to Banasura directly. Hey, buddy. Which is what devotees do oftentimes. They say, hey, you're attached. I remember in the early days, some sannyasis, not me, anyway, one particular one, he would go into the grahastas' homes and just tell them, you're just attached to this family and everything like that, and wife and children and all this maya. You got to get out of this. And then there would be so many verses the sannyasis would learn. Actually, as soon as they took sannyas, they would learn certain verses, like, I'm sure you know these verses. Pumsa striya mituni bhava metam tayor mitori gwantyaho atograha kshetra sutapta vitar. You know that? Janasya mohayam hamameti. I'm sure Krishna Prabhu traveled with some sannyasis. You probably heard that verse like 10 million times. Just to convince the devotees just to stay with Radha Damodar. Anyway, and so, Pumsa Striya, what does that verse mean? That you put together a man and a Striya, and then generally they would, this is not the purpose of the class, don't worry, don't start crying. Generally, they would just actually also define what Striya means in that particular class. They say Striya means she who expands the enjoyment. And then another thing they would derive from that particular understanding, they would say, well, expand because just when you're brahmachari, you're very happy here. You have maybe one little box of books and box of clothes, and then you expand to a whole moving van. I'm sure you heard that one before. And then then you have to get a job, and then they tell you the story about the Brahmin who had his socks being eaten or underwear being eaten by a rat, and then the Brahmin had to get a cat to take care of the rat, and the cat had to have a cow to provide milk, and the cow had to have someone to take care of it, which is a wife, and then the person had to get a job. Anyway, so, then you're not, I'm sure it would be like this. Then the knot in your heart becomes tightened. It's frightening, isn't it? It's really going to hold. And then, all these things you become attached to. And then, jinasya moham, you become so bewildered, the person becomes so weird. Isn't it? Jinasya moham. So, another verses too that come to mind in this regard. Don't worry, that's not the purpose of this class. I'm going to balance it, hopefully if we have time. So, Deya patra kalatradishu, atma shanaisha satpapi, deshams pramatat nidanam, pashanapi na pashati. Another nice verse that they probably did. Deya, your body, patra kalatradishu, and your wife, and all these things. Atma shanaishu. A sattvapi. These are fallible soldiers. Anyway, you can imagine fighting a battle with soldiers who just like ran away from the battlefield or whatever. Fallible soldiers. Sattvapi. Tesam pramada. Nidhanam pashanapi. And in this way, you think you see pashanapi napashyati. And what? And you don't see. So in this way, anyway, so many things are there. I have the translation of this verse, which I thought is very interesting. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they do not see their inevitable destruction. Okay. So That's one side of the equation. But the other side is that what is illusion or what is Maya is not really one's attachment to the family, but one's attachment for the wrong reason, just like it was discussed yesterday in class. That one really has to transform their attachment to be connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So the illusion that takes place, the illusion that takes place in family life is due to forgetfulness of Krishna, not seeing your family members connected to Krishna. And so that is Banasura's problem. Not that he likes his family, attached to his family, or is responsible for taking care of his family, Usha, particularly in this particular case, but he is attached to them giving him satisfaction. He's attached in a non-Krishna conscious way. So in the Bhagavatam, in the Chatur Shloka verse, which is I wanted to read today because it's so instructive in this regard, this verse instructs us and tells us what is Maya, or what is illusion, and what is not illusion. And this verse, if we apply it rightly, our attachments can be transformed into into actually assistance or helping us advance in devotional service. Just like the description is given sometimes, that if one has a thorn, sometimes the methodology for removing the thorn is another thorn. So in other words, if our attachments are Krishnized, and we engage and think of pleasing Krishna, utilizing our attachments, then the attachments are no longer entangling in this material world. And I'm going to read this verse from the Bhagavatam. It's the second canto, 9th chapter, text 34, which is actually one of the Chatushloki verses in the Bhagavatam, or the nutshell verses in the Bhagavatam, that define what illusion is. And indirectly, it defines what Krishna consciousness is. So it goes as follows. Rite ritam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yata basha yata tamaha. And so, I don't know if I'm going to read the word by word. No, it's not necessary to read the word by word synonyms, but the purport is actually quite interesting in this regard. So the translation is, O Brahma, this is Krishna speaking, of course, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So in the purport, Prabhupada comments that in the previous verse it has already been included that in the stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of God. And of course, that's the famous verse, Aham evagru, evagre, nanyat yat sadasat param, paschatatam, jat yo vishasheta, shoshmi aham. that before the creation there was I, after the creation is I, and during the creation, the manifestation of the creation, there's I. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord. It should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya. So in other words, if one dovetails whatever one has in this world, that's Yoga Maya, or the internal potency. It's interesting, isn't it? So in other words, there's no need of giving things up to be Krishna conscious. In fact, you become more attached to those things, thinking of them as belonging to Krishna, just like the verse in the Upanishad, text number 1, of course. Ishavashamidam sarvam yatgancha jagacham jagat. Tena jaktena bunjadha. Magridha kashas vidanam. That everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Lord gives everybody their quota. So everybody has a different quota. But that quota has been given by the Lord to utilize in his service. Right? So sometimes devotees think that advancement means to manifest some external signs of detachment. And so not even talking about family life right now. So let's say they have a car and they don't take care of it well. Just like there's that famous story where Prabhupada was in a car and he wiped his finger on the dashboard. And Prabhupada said, "Who do you think this car belongs to?" Prabhupada was very attentive about Krishna's energy and utilizing it properly in Krishna's service. And of course, even in reference to Grahastha life, Prabhupada was very pleased when his Grahasthas went to the UK and opened up the temples there. So that's the proper use of one's attachment or one's connection with one's family members. Or even yesterday, a very interesting encounter yesterday. One new devotee came to the temple and he revealed to me that his mother is one of the big professors at Duke University. So I said, you must immediately, he's trying to be detached from his mother. I said, no, bring her to see me immediately. So he brings her to see me. Very prominent professor of anthropology. We had an interesting discussion yesterday afternoon. So, sometimes people think that their attachments are Maya. But their attachments, again, are only Maya when they try to use the attachments for their own sense gratification, their own pleasure, forgetting Krishna. But otherwise, as described here, very interesting, is Yoga Maya. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivamaya or Mahamaya. This, of course, material illusory potency. Both the Mayas have connections with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. In other words, if you see something, if you see your family members as not connected with the Supreme Personality of God and connected with your service to the Lord, belonging to the Lord, the property of the Lord, that's illusion. And if you engage in Falgo Vairagya means what? false renunciation. Actually, Prabhupada defined that term falgu in different ways, but basically, sometimes it means crazy too. Like in Vrindavan, there's this temple called the Falgu Baba Temple. And I asked the devotees, what does it mean? It means crazy Baba. But Prabhupada also defined the word Falgu in terms of a river called Falgu, which you might have heard before, which appears not to be a river, but if you go under the sand or into the sand, you'll see there's water flowing underneath. So it's called the Falgu River. Anyway, so Prabhupada term Falgu is false. So it's false renunciation, and that's just as much illusion as accepting something for your own sense gratification. Like Prabhupada, of course, Prabhupada gives the example many, many times that there is someone who drops money on the street, and you grab it and take it as yours, then you're a rascal, or you just walk by and say, I renounce it. You're also stupid. What you should do is take the money, of course. Probably a typical example. Take the money and bring it, or try to find who actually it belongs to. And that's what we're doing in Krishna consciousness. So if someone finds themselves in a grahastha situation, find out who your wife belongs to. That doesn't mean she has a boyfriend. But anyway, thought I'd add that one. But find out you have no right to possess her or possess your family. What is your right? Or you don't even have a right to possess your house. Deha patra kala chadri su. Right, to possess your body. Did you come up with the ingredients? Did you put it together? Did you hire the architect or biological engineer? What legal right do you have to your body? And of course, this is the good argument against abortion and everything like that. It's my body, it's my right. It's not your right. It's not your body. Ishavasham, idam savar. Prabhupada said we should institute this Ishavasha conception and not preach false renunciation. Continuing with the purport, I thought it was just interesting in this regard. Misconceiving one thing for another is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in front of the illusion person is not false, but accepting it as a snake is illusory. Therefore, this material manifestation is not false, but the wrong conception of accepting the material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears not to be produced out of my energy is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless or that the Supreme Lord is formless is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2:12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord, had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future. Let me skip. Because there's more information here. It's a long purport, actually, because it's a super long purport. Whoops, there was one thing I want to read. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but just a reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Person, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned soul is illusion, and this conclusion is stated in this verse. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, that's interesting, physiologists, empiric philosophers, it's interesting, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the Lord and the living entities, glaring reflections of the sun, moon, electricity, and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, etc. So, let's see, I wanted to read any more here. Wow, such a long purport. In any case, anyway, just getting to the point, also I wanted to read this commentary from the translation of the first verse of the Upanishad, then we'll speak a little more. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So in other words, if one sees, just to summarize, one sees one's family, wife, paraphernalia, and everything like that as belonging to Krishna, use it in Krishna's service, then, as Prabhupada said, that's Yogamaya. And if one sees them as not being used in Krishna's service, it's Mahamaya, and by using whatever Krishna has given you, then you can become perfectly Krishna conscious. Yat kuroshi yadishnashi yojahashi. Whatever you have, whatever you offer, whatever you give away should be an offering to Krishna. So, on that happy note, we'll keep it short. Any questions or comments? Krishna Brew. Yes, he can't tell Bana directly because Bana is still attached. So he's doing it in terms of his prayers to Lord Vishnu. And you find that this particular technique is used quite a bit. Like Narada Muni, telling the Puranjana story. He talks to King Prachinibari that once there was a king, O king, and he uses this analogy, a metaphor actually, and he describes this Puranjana, which means like every man, and he goes through this whole thing about Puranjana's story, and Puranjana's attachment becomes a woman in the next life, etc., just so to teach the king a lesson. So in our preaching, actually that's something I wanted to develop in the beginning. In our preaching, we can't always be direct and tell people where it's at. We have to use stories, analogies, engage people in chanting the holy name, give people prasadam, and in this way they gradually will become capable of hearing the truth. Like that. And, and sometimes we see that if people are too much focused on telling others about their attachments, it's maybe an indication of the preacher's own attachments. I've seen that in many, many cases. That if someone is not being compassionate, understanding this person is attached, we have to deal with them gently, and just smashes them, then the preacher himself or herself may be indicating their own material attachments. Prabhupada, jokingly, there was one time when Prabhupada was talking to my godbrother Pancha Dravida Swami, and Prabhupada had told this story about Shakshi Gopal. Shakshi Gopal is the deity that walked all the way across India to witness a marriage promise. And there was a younger Brahmin who Prabhupada said was a pure devotee, and an older Brahmin who Prabhupada said was a pure devotee too. And this younger Brahmin basically convinced the deity to walk across India to witness the marriage promise so he could marry this girl. And then Pancharavida Swami said to Prabhupada, I guess he was joking, hopefully. He said jokingly, if he was such a pure devotee, why did he get married after all? And Prabhupada said, you're saying this because no one would have you. You're just a frustrated sannyasi, basically. Not that he was. I mean, this was a joking mood. This is not meant as a criticism of Pancharavita Swami, who was my dear friend. But, Prabhupada was indicating that if we take such a negative attitude towards, people's attachments or paraphernalia that people have, then that may indicate our own attachments, our own desire, or even our own envy of someone's particular situation. So a truly compassionate person is not generally going to engage in smashing language. A truly compassionate person is thinking, what's the best thing to tell this person so that they will gradually become Krishna conscious, to understand their particular situation, position in terms of their spiritual progress, and give them appropriate information that will help them progress. Oh my God. On that happy note,
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Kanvandam Aravindanalaya Taksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priti manti Pasyanti panti kayanti Jiram naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padaya Dale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Sangming Niti Om Day Namaste, Parvati Devi, Gauravani Vacha, Nengele Vishesha, Jimyavati, Mastya Jagani is a time and day. Jai Shri Krishna Jait Allah Prabhupada Nanda Shri Advaita Gadana Siva Sati Gaurakrana Sri Advaita Vasari Gaurakrana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanityananda Advaita Gadana Siva Sati Gaurakrana Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanityananda Advaita Gadana Siva Sati Gaurakrana Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hati Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Goloka, Radhe. Hey, Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Paramatoriya at the Sadhishri Srimad Shima Kunda
Chaitodarpanam marjanam bhavamahatavagni nirvapanam Treya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahudan Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amita Smarane Nakala Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrisha Mihajani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrushim Vachintaya Nayanam Gladashu Daraya Varanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadam Padam Nastumam Adarshanam Marmata Kurotuva Yatatatava Vidadatulam Patomat Pranatastu Sa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet